Welcome to Escape Radio. I'm Frankie Aki. It's Thursday, October 15th, 2020. Thank you for joining me. The album for this week is The Balladeer by Lori McKenna, a folk singer out of Boston who's regarded as one of country music's finest songwriters. A two-time Grammy winner, she's written for Little Big Town, Keith Urban, and Tim McGraw, among other big names. Her many solo albums include Numbered Doors, The Bird and the Rifle, The Tree, and now The Balladeer.
There was joy in every new song she wrote. They got a bus and traveled coast to coast, drinking with their friends and strangers, and business people called to say that
This album is for the person who's had to fight for every inch. For the person who puts on their pants one leg at a time and goes out each day and gives life everything they've got. You know, art can't complete us, but it can help us through the night. It can accompany us in reflection and through some of the loneliest times. Listening to Lori McKenna, I know that she's been there. And the more you listen to her, the more you'll open your heart to her, and the more her music will wash over you and, as she would say, pour mercy on your soul. She's a true craftsman who staked out her little patch of land as a solo artist, and she nurtured it and made it blossom and shine. And her lovely voice and steady hand at the guitar helped in this endeavor, for sure. But mostly she did it with heart and soul.
Still making a long drive, still working overtime, still lying by your side, even in the great divide, still staying up all night, holding on just to make.
With each album, released every couple years, McKenna finds greater and greater focus. I mean, she's always the same person. She stays the same person. But in each outing, we meet a different, refined, more economical, wiser musician. And The Balladeer is certainly no exception. Notable songs include The Balladeer for its storytelling, Marie, which is a song about her big sister, Good Fight for its perseverance, and When You're My Age, which was the first single from the album prior to its release. The Balladeer was released on July 4th, 2020. And here's one more by a mother of five, Lori McKenna.
Might make you second guess it, but I bet love will still be making the world go round. When I was your age, I didn't worry like I think you do. Back then, innocence was.
And this week's single is I Still Love You by Night Traveler. Night Traveler is a duo out of Austin, Texas, and they consist of Adam Fisher and Hunter Glask. Their debut album their debut single rather was 1984. Followed by last year's Electric Love and the EP Night Traveler Volume 1. A few weeks ago, I talked to you guys about At 1980's 1,000 Lives as the album of the week. And this single is very much along the same lines. It's nostalgic 80s music, but a very good song nonetheless. And I guess I'm selling it a little bit short by calling it nostalgic 80s music, because while music does borrow from that era, this music does borrow from that era, it's a sound that's quite unique to, it's referred to as retrowave. That's sort of the mini genre, and it's within EDM music. And even the artists themselves would classify themselves as such. But I want to think more broadly than that. Every genre of music is inspired by some earlier form, as with folk and country, or with jazz and hip hop. So when you listen to artists like Night Traveler, Ad 1980, Time Cop 1983, or Gunship, to name a few, it's important to remember that this trend of nostalgic music that exists, it's itself quite modern. It's a millennial phenomenon, and I think that even if you're not a millennial, you can still dig it, and I think you will. This is a song about the one, long drives down the coast, and being young. I mean, if it ain't modern, then maybe it's eternal. I Still Love You was released on July 9th, 2020, and here it is. And finally, the movie for the week is All In, The Fight for Democracy, directed by Lisa Cortez and Liz Garbus. All In's actually a documentary film rather than a feature. And I'm not a big consumer of documentary films because much of the time they tell one side of the story, leaving out, some pieces to the entire puzzle. But the subject of this film doesn't really have two sides. If it does, the two sides are democracy versus minority rule. Generations of Americans now have witnessed organized, often thinly veiled attempts to deny certain citizens the right to vote, from Reconstruction through the presidency of Donald J. Trump. Look, this is not a political show. It's about film and music, which serve as escapes and relief from politics and the real world. But if we don't stand up to authoritarianism and the current obvious threats to our democracy, then how free will our artists be tomorrow to express themselves, to challenge our thinking, and to broaden our minds? My family came to America in 1995. To a free country in which an Afghan kid could fly as high as his dreams would allow. And I want my nieces and nephews to have that too. This film is about democracy in peril, in which our fundamental right to vote is at stake. This is not alarmist or liberal, it's American. This is happening right now. And what stuck out to me the most in this film is the very issue of rights in America. We are quite insistent about gun rights, the right to free speech, and states' rights, just to name a few. So why are we okay with the denial of our voting rights? No matter what our political beliefs are, conservative or liberal, and no matter what religion or part of the country we belong to, we have to rally around our shared values. And that's what bonds us as Americans. And among these values is democracy. Some people say we're not a democracy, but that's not entirely true. We get to vote for our representatives. A democratic republic, if you want to call it. But democracy is certainly necessary to our system and to our way of life here in America. In extending the Voting Rights Act, Ronald Reagan once said that everyone who's eligible to vote should register and then vote. So why aren't we making it as easy as possible for every American to do that? All In was released on September 18th, 2020 by Amazon. And here's a short clip from the film.
Dr. King and I, we had been working together to get a civil rights bill passed. We went back and we met with President Johnson. And he said, well, I know you need voting rights, but we just had a civil rights bill passed. I just don't have the power to go back to Congress for another civil rights bill. I know it's needed, but I don't have the power. And he must have said, I don't have the power half a dozen times. When we left, I asked Dr. King, well, what are you going to do? He said, we're going to get the president some power.
All right, so that'll do it for today, everybody. Thank you for joining me, as always. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Thursday, Friday, and weekend. Johnny Nash, Eddie Van Halen, rest in peace. Your music will always be alive with us. And in a sense, you'll always be alive as well. Peace out, everybody. Take care.